that's...
Yes, he does that. Did he get it?
I think so.
Oh my God.
Toby gonna fly.
Hi guys, so today I am going to share my story of the time I was in an abusive relationship. So before I start this, I just want to put out a trigger warning for emotional abuse. There is a fly behind me, excuse him. I'm making this video as an advocacy video to help other people who might be going through the same thing, help them recognize that, number one, that they're going through it, and number two, that they're not alone, and that there's resources out there, and I will link some in the description below. So yeah, let's get going into this video with my weird finger gesture. So we're gonna call this individual Peter. We were friends for a while, and then Peter really wanted to start a relationship, and just to be clear, and I'm probably going to make videos about this in the future, I am asexual. I do not I'm not really interested in romantic gestures or touching or anything of the sort. So I was very awkward about doing things like holding hands or our first kiss. I ended up doing those things only because I was feeling uncomfortable with the fact that Peter wanted that, and like he wouldn't respect my need for space. Peter wasn't respecting me saying, I'm not really interested in those things, but I still think we can have a relationship. But I kind of gave in just because those are normal relationship things that people do. And me and Peter had a ton of fun. We went places and we ate meals together and we spent time together. But this became hard starting in around January or February of this year. He started doing things that became more obvious to be signs of emotional abuse. So Peter would come down to hang out with me. Sometimes just me, sometimes Brielle would be there, but most of the time it was situations where it was just me, and he would just leave abruptly for no reason. He would just walk out the door, and then he would text me a few minutes later saying that I left and it's all your fault and you should feel guilty about this, and that was really upsetting. Also, anytime I tried to hang out with Brielle, I would be under constant criticism of, like, if you have time to hang out with Brielle, why aren't you hanging out with me? I have Brielle with me because sometimes my memory is rough.
I would say that a big thing that I noticed was that it seemed like if you were ever hanging out with me or your family, or you were, like, at work or at church or whatever, or training with Toby, that he would get upset.
Anything that wasn't him.
Right, he would get upset because he felt like, well, why can't you be hanging out with me during those things? And he also, it just seemed like he kind of wanted you to not be connected to other people. Like, when we became friends, he really didn't like me at all, like, just from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it seemed like no matter what I did, like, I tried to be really nice, and he still didn't like me. And it seemed like your sister would always say that had issues with him, and your sister would always say that she didn't really like him because he was rude to her as well. And
one of the major things was that he would come to my work and he would flirt with me in front of my other coworkers who are also males. And I felt very uncomfortable by that. He would just come to work and I would ask him not to, but he still would do it. He would also inappropriately, like, he would try to, like, play with my hair or touch or kiss my neck. And I told him I really wasn't comfortable with those things and that it had to stop, and he just kept going.
You guys would have these discussions, like, when you finally started saying, like, hey, so this thing is going wrong.
He would automatically be turned back on me, like, it's all your fault.
Yeah, he would somehow blame it on you. And then I just remember you telling me that, like, he would, every couple of nights, like every 2 or 3 nights, he would call you and say you guys had to talk.
Right.
And it was about the same thing every time.
He would say, oh, we have to talk. And I'd be like, well, I don't really want to have, that sounds scary. I don't really want to, have a talk. I told him how when I was younger, when people said we had to have a talk, it meant that I was in trouble. And so I would ask him to rephrase it like, hey, can we just talk about this? Or there's something wrong. But he wouldn't. He just kept saying it like that. And it would always trigger memories for me of my childhood.
And he would always talk to you about the same thing.
Mm-hmm. It was always the same issue over and over again.
And then, that one time when you were, thinking about breaking up with him around Christmas time.
Yeah, so I thought maybe it would be good for us to just have some space from each other. And he brought me to this lights show, and I was really uncomfortable. And then he, went down on one knee and, presented a promise ring. And with that promise ring, so, can you define what a promise ring is?
So, a promise ring, at least in, from how I know it and whatever, I know that it's different in a bunch of different cultures, but at least for my relationship, I have a promise ring with my boyfriend, and basically he gave it to me as kind of saying, we will eventually get engaged. So it's kind of the step before getting engaged.
Right.
Because we're really young, we don't want to get engaged yet, but
you have to be under a mutually, both sides have to agree.
Well, yeah, you still have to say yes. You can say no.
But I didn't know what it was, and I was really uncomfortable because it felt like he was, proposing, and I was like, fuck! And instead of explaining it like that, so he said basically it's that you're promising to get married, and, I told him, I said, I didn't want to be awkward, so I accepted it, but I don't want to get married right now. And he's like, well, but you have to promise to get married. And you need to promise to have sex. And that's really where my red flags went up, because I was like...
He talked about sex a lot.
He did.
Another thing that happened was... Michaela was debating, she was thinking, well, maybe I'm asexual. I'm not really interested in sex at all. And so... she came to talk to me about it because we're best friends and we're both girls, and, so she came to talk to me. And so I, educated. I was like, well, here's what sex is. This is what this is. And if you're not comfortable with it, that's totally okay. You don't have to do it. You never have to have sex,
and
ever.
Immediately the next day he was like, you talked to Gabby about this?
Yeah, so...
you can't talk to Gabby about this. She's misinforming you.
Yeah, so immediately... Peter said, oh my God, you can't talk to other people about sex. You should come to me for sex, because, I know about it, but, other people, you can't go to them, because they're gonna misinform you. But anyway, it was just really weird, because it was, it's not like I, showed her physically how to do it. He shouldn't be uncomfortable with...
one of the things he said was, oh, people say it doesn't hurt, but it does. He told me that it hurts. So, I have PCOS, if you guys didn't know. If you haven't seen my endocrinologist video, link up there. He assumed that, so basically I told him, well, I don't want to have sex and I'm not interested in it. And I also told him that I had to go to the endocrinologist because my hormones were off. And he goes, oh, well, I looked it up and it said that if your hormones change because of whatever you think you're going through, then you'll probably want to have sex.
Which, I'll be completely honest, some hormones can change your sex drive. However, the one that she had off, the one that was wrong in her body, was not that hormone.
Yeah.
So basically he was saying that, and I read text messages that said this. Basically he was saying, when you go to the endocrinologist, you have to ask them about that and make sure that you get a medication to make it so that hormone is normal so that we can have sex. Yeah, it was really uncomfortable, just in general, because, I don't want to, because, I would hear him talk about, oh, no matter what, it's gonna hurt. And it's no, it doesn't. But basically what I'm saying is that the fact that he would say, oh, it's gonna hurt no matter what, was just kind of weird.
So anyways, that was part of that, and we we tried to set up boundaries, and he just wouldn't follow them. He was really rude to everyone. It got to a point where, like, I would be on the phone with him, and I was sitting in my living room where my family congregates, you know, and my parents were in the room, and he immediately was like, I don't, like, you need to go somewhere else, like, you can't have people in the room. And I'm like, I have headphones in, because I had my AirPods in. And he's like, I don't care, you need to leave. And then I'm like, well, then I need to end the call, because I was in the middle of something with my family. And that was a big red flag. Basically, it just got to the point where, like, I wasn't being considered anymore.
It felt like, because one of the other things that he did was the whole time percentage thing, was he would tell you, you spend this percentage of time doing this and this percentage of time doing this, and this is how much percent that you should be spending with me.
Which is all the time.
Which was basically all of your free time. So he was expecting you not to have any time to yourself, not to have any time to train your service dog in training, not to have any time to
hang out with my best friend.
Hang out with me, which, but anyway, he would do stuff like that, like you wouldn't have any time to do anything else, and, like, no time for, like, homework and stuff like that.
The other thing is, he always said that, like, I made his depression worse. So one of the big things towards the end was his depression. He was trying to get diagnosed with depression, and yeah, he had a really rough home life. But he would basically blame me for the depression, and he would always talk about how I was the only thing that made him better. So I had to spend all my time with him.
Basically, if you guys don't know me or follow my channel, you might not know that
what the fuck?
Basically, I have a couple mental and physical disabilities that require me to sometimes have a caretaker around. When I'm in really bad depressive episodes, basically, I, have serious issues with functioning in normal life. Now, Peter was not in that same position. He was able to go to classes. He was able to, he had a job. He was able to do things. The thing is he just didn't have any, like, leisure activities that he would do by himself. So he didn't have any, like, self-care time or, like, him time that he could spend just by himself. He didn't have any, like, happy time. Right, like, he would only do those things with you. So the problem with that is that basically all of his happiness depended on if you were with him or not. And that's not okay. Like, I love my boyfriend, but I'm gonna watch Once Upon a Time all by my fucking self. Like, you can't just expect, especially two people who are in college, two people who are working, one person who has a chronic illness and is, working on getting their health stuff in order. Yeah, so it's just not okay of him to expect those kind of things from you.
So we got to the COVID-19 pandemic and everything's shutting down. And as much as he wanted to spend time together, I insisted that we stay apart due to the coronavirus and the fact that,
it wasn't a good idea for you two to be together because both of you have family members who are
essential workers. So as the quarantine went on, I kind of started to really realize what was happening. As with people that experience emotional abuse, they kind of, it's a struggle for them to actually understand what's happening.
Usually, you might not even know it's emotional abuse.
Right.
You might not have known what a relationship like that should have looked like.
Right. That was the longest relationship I've ever had. So towards July, I told him that I needed to be done. Like, I was scared out of my mind. He knows where I live. He knows how to contact my peoples. It was scary. And his only answer to me breaking up with him was, okay. And I mean, I guess I
kind of get it because he was hurt,
right?
But I don't know. The thing is it's just like you worked really hard to try and get it to work, but I just don't think that he was at a place in his life that he was ready for a relationship. I think that when someone's really depressed like that, unless that person is emotionally ready to be there for you, when you're going through that, then it's not a good time.
Prior to us breaking up, I asked the university to put him near me, as well as Brielle, in case I were to have a medical event. And when we broke up, he didn't move. So currently, he lives next to me, so like to the right of my room. And the first week of school, that was scary. It was really scary. And I didn't really tell people why. Part of it was seeing him. Part of it was the fact that he would be so pushy about things. Like about the sex in the marriage. And like that I just thought that he would come up and like try to start the relationship again. He's not a small guy.
Yeah, he's a bigger guy. So I can understand kind of feeling a little bit unsafe.
I still feel unsafe, but I feel better. Because now Brielle's here, and I'm not as scared.
The other thing is that, like, we passed...
Because Brielle could totally beat him up.
Bitch, I will pop all of my joints. I think the big thing is just that I think that you're doing really good with not being too afraid to, like, you know, leave the dorm and stuff like that. Like, you're doing really good with that kind of stuff.
I want to help people recognize what's going on, if they're going through something similar, like what's going on and like what they can do about it.
Yeah, because I constantly told you, like, hey, this doesn't seem okay. This doesn't seem safe. This doesn't seem... Like, she would tell me, like, hey, he, right when I was going to tell him that I might be asexual and, like, you know, I was going to remind him of that again, he gave me this promise ring. And I was just like, oh, okay. Well, because the thing is he gave that to you after you guys had been arguing for, like, weeks. Like, you hadn't, like, spoken to each other for, like, weeks. And then he just shows up with this promise ring. It's like, oh, okay.
If you guys are going through a similar situation where you can reach out, my inbox is always open. You can reach out to me on YouTube or Instagram. I don't know how YouTube messages work, but like you'll all figure it out. And I'll link some resources in the description. Emotional abuse is not okay. There's other forms of abuse. Like, this could have gotten worse, but thankfully it didn't. So know the signs, know what's happening. I mean, try to have an honest conversation, and if that ain't working, run like hell. Took me a little longer to run like hell, but, you know.
Right, you might not have as much
support,
so just make sure that you know the signs and do it for you. Don't do it because, you know, don't stay with somebody because your family likes them, you know. Like, just because your family likes them doesn't mean that they know what that person is like behind closed doors.
Closed doors. But thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all in whatever I do with my life. Bye!